Leipzig, winter of 1730. Snow hushed the narrow streets, muffling the city's restless noise. Inside a modest room of the Thomasschule, candlelight flickered over pages of manuscript. Johann Sebastian Bach sat before his harpsichord, hands folded, listening not to sound, but to the silence between thoughts. At 50, he was a man of gravity and grace. Cantor, composer, father of 20 children, 10 of whom were already buried. His days were spent teaching unruly choir boys and writing music for endless church services. Yet beneath that daily labor stirred a stillness he could not name. That winter he began another commission, the Orchestral Suite No. 3, in D major, BWV 1068. Music for a small ensemble, to be performed at Leipzig's Café Zimmermann, where his Collegium Musicum gathered each week. He planned the stately French overture, the lively gavottes and gigues, yet between these dances he imagined something else, a moment of air, a breath. Late at night, when the city slept, he dipped his quill and began to write the second movement, marking it simply, air. The melody came slowly, as though it already existed and only needed to be found. The violins would sing in long, arching phrases, tender and unadorned. Beneath them, the continuo would pulse gently, steady as a heart. No trumpets, no timpani, no spectacle, just calm. He wrote not for courtly applause, but for the soul's quiet. Weeks later at the cafe, the music was performed. Candles flickered, cups clinked, and merchants paused mid-conversation as the air began. The room seemed to breathe with the music. Its simplicity astonished them. A single line, unfolding with such inevitability that it felt like prayer. His wife, Anna Magdalena, copied the score afterward in her delicate script, humming as she wrote. Bach smiled. For him, music was not escape, but order, the translation of grief into grace. He could not have known that this quiet movement, barely 3 minutes long, would travel further than any other he composed. When he died in 1750, much of his work lay forgotten in drawers. The world had turned to the lighter clarity of Haydn and Mozart. Bach's manuscripts passed among his children. The air slept in silence for nearly a century. More than 100 years later, a violinist named August Wilhelm Yu discovered the score. Born in 1845, he lived in a world transformed by Romanticism, where music had become confession and longing. When he reached Bach's air, he felt its calm as a kind of revelation, serenity untouched by sentimentality. He played it at his piano, then tried it on his violin. The melody soared too high for the sound he imagined, warm, intimate, human. So he began to experiment. What if, he wondered, the entire line were played on the violin's lowest string, the G string, whose tone was darker, almost like a human voice? To make that possible, he transposed the piece down a whole tone to C major, rearranging the accompaniment for piano. It was an audacious idea, yet when he drew his bow and the melody flowed from a single string, the room seemed to glow. The sound was deep, velvety, haunting. He named it Air on the G String. When Wilhelm Yu performed it publicly in the 1880s, audiences were transfixed. Critics spoke of music that breathes. The violin seemed to whisper rather than sing. and the silence after the last note felt sacred. Some scholars protested that Bach would never have allowed such romantic indulgence. Wilhelm Yu smiled. "Bach wrote for eternity," he said, "and eternity can take many forms." He was right. The air lived again, transformed, yet true. Bach never heard the world's applause. In July 1750, half-blind and exhausted, he dictated his final chorale prelude, "Before Thy Throne I Now Appear," and died soon after. He was buried in Leipzig, the city that had both burdened and inspired him. He had written over 1,000 works, fugues, passions, cantatas, each ending with the humble inscription, "Soli Deo Gloria," "To God alone be the glory." The air carried that same humility, distilled into melody. A century later, August Wilhelm gave that melody a new voice, darker, more human, without knowing that he was joining hands across time with the man from Leipzig. Bach had built the cathedral. Wilhelm had filled it with candlelight.
Today, the air on the G string is everywhere. In concert halls, on the radio, in films, in moments of remembrance. It has been played for astronauts in orbit and for children in classrooms. It has closed royal funerals and opened weddings in small country chapels. And yet, despite its ubiquity, it remains untouched. No matter how many times it is heard, its first notes still hush the room. For 3 centuries, it has carried the same quiet message, that beauty need not shout, and that peace can exist even in a broken world. It speaks to believers and unbelievers alike, to joy and to mourning. It asks nothing. It simply is. In Leipzig, the Thomaskirche still rises in quiet grace, its churchyard cradling the eternal rest of Johann Sebastian Bach. Tourists walk across the stone floor to the modest grave marked Johann Sebastian Bach. Sometimes, from within the church, faint music drifts. Perhaps a rehearsal. Perhaps the air itself. The sound rises into the vaulted ceiling, soft and golden. The centuries collapse. The snow falls as it once did outside Bach's window. One can almost see him there again. The flicker of his candle, the small sigh as he leans back and listens to the silence after the final bar. He could never have imagined that his quiet air would become a universal prayer, played in times of joy and ruin alike, reminding generations of the fragile miracle of being alive. The melody endures, tender, inevitable, eternal, whispering to each new listener, as softly as breath. In the quiet air, his soul still sings.